chair either.
Call this Delaware County Commissioners meeting to order for the discussion of the DUI task force budget. Are you organized? Are you ready?
I am. Look at me.
You are good.
I need to be right now. Got it.
Do
you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So we are presenting to you 4 documents: our member contact list for fiscal year 19, our meeting calendar list for fiscal year 19, our estimated budget, and our annual plan. Our fiscal year for our task force is July 1 to June 30th. So if we start with the contact list, you'll see that we've got not a very big list of folks, but we've got some pretty active members. Everyone's, good about participating and
We're missing one though.
who we missing?
That one gal.
I emailed her and she's not sure if she wants to.
Oh.
Shapiro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a gal recently, Sarah Shapiro from Department of somewhere,
Wasn't it revenue?
Revenue, perhaps, interested in joining our task force. But she emailed me today saying she wasn't sure if she could make some of our meetings, which kind of becomes an issue.
Sure.
So, there's that, the contact information. Our meeting calendar, we meet typically on the last Wednesday of every month from 3 to 5 upstairs in the courtroom. We do try to shift things around if necessary, or cancel meetings if we don't have enough members that are able to attend. But we followed the same pattern of the last Wednesday going forward for that. And then the budget, you'll notice on the budget sheet where I listed our fiscal year 18 items and then the 19 estimated items on the right. Our cash on hand and projected carryover is going to be way less than what we've had for the last several years, probably about half of what we've carried forward compared to last year, which isn't surprising. We had a pretty big surplus of from House Bill 132 a couple of years ago, I better put my glasses back on, 132. And so we've been good stewards of that, but this is our year where we went to a rather large training in San Antonio just last month. Gwen and I went. It's called Lifesavers, and it's the largest traffic safety conference in the nation. If you want to get information about traffic safety, that's the place to go and get it. And so that's a rather large expense for our small group, and we expect that roughly every other year is what we try to go, just because it's pretty costly.
Extremely.
Yeah, extremely costly, extremely beneficial, but they always house it somewhere that it costs a lot for someone from Montana to get there and to attend. Our reinstatement fees, I've just carried over an estimated revenue of $2,000. I think from House Bill 132, we'll probably see less than what we've seen last year, where it was 552 down to 276. And then everything down below that for our expenses are, we cut back a little bit on a lot of things. And then our carryover for the next year is less than what we projected from this year.
Is that House Bill 132 a result of the special session or the various cuts at the legislature? Or?
That's a result of
That was 15, wasn't it?
yeah. For years and years, any county that didn't have an established DUI task force, all of their county reinstatement fees kept going into a pot. And the pot got so big that a few years back, the legislature decided they needed to do something with that pot of money that was just sitting there. So they encouraged counties to form their DUI task forces and get their money. Well, those that decided not to, they took that pot and they divided it up evenly amongst those that were formed. So every year now, that was that large influx that we got a couple of years ago. Every year now, that amount's just going to be pretty minimal of what had accumulated from the year before, not from 10 years before. So we'll see something every year, but we won't see quite as much. And word from Department of Transportation is that DUI arrests statewide are down. So so that's why I estimated less than 2018.
Okay.
So we don't function off a pile of money, but I feel we do some pretty cool things, and we've got some things in the fire that we're looking at to do going forward. Do you have anything to add about the budget? So then our,
Well, I guess the reinstatement fee, wasn't gonna take part of that too? That was, I think, something in this last legislative thing they were talking about, cause right now it's a $200 reinstatement fee for DUIs. So 100 goes to state, 100's supposed to go to the DUI task forces, and I think that they're trying to get their hands in that as well. And I think they wanna drop it down to like 70 versus 100 or something like that. They wanna put something in, they wanna take that money from reinstatement fees and put it in some sort of other program of some nature, so. Similar to the conversation we had earlier today.
yeah, everyone's trying to tap into everybody else's funds and use it for things. So it'll be interesting if somebody proposes something this session that does, that they're trying to get their hands on that.
Yep. And you guys do need to approve the contacts or the positions. I think they have to agree to those as well. And I don't know if there's something, if it's.
When I submit this to MDT, I usually just submit that signed
that one?
cover sheet and tell them and include all 4 pieces
Okay.
with it. And
Okay.
they've accepted it
Okay.
as a group in the past. So onto our plan. Our mission has not changed over the years. We're still working hard to reduce all the bad things that happen when people drink and drive and when underage kids get their hands on alcohol. The first, page 3, the state overview. Our population went up in the 2016 census, so that page changed just a little bit from last year. But our fatalities and our alcohol impaired driving fatalities are still, we're still above the national average by far than what those are. Page 4, the statewide effort from Department of Transportation, who pretty much leads most DUI task forces and helps guide them. Their vision of reaching 852 fatalities by the year 2030 follows their vision of 0 fatalities at some point, which is what we're all hoping for and wanting for, is that people stop dying on our roadways as a result of drunk drivers. So we're always in support of their mission of 0. Page 5, the top part of that, the occupant restraint use and alcohol-related crash fatalities, it's always significant to see that people who don't wear their seatbelts are dying on our roads. It's not the alcohol that's killing them when they're drinking and driving. It is being thrown out of their car, around in their car. So historically, restraint use and alcohol-related crashes is low and is the primary cause of fatal injuries. And then the second box there, the impaired driving charges and convictions. That comes from Department of Justice, and their database, this is the exact same chart that I put in last year because they haven't updated their data, and I'm not sure why they haven't included any recent years, but that's the exact same graph as what it was last year. Page 6 is really just another box of all the alcohol impaired driving fatalities, Montana versus the US and the best state. For some reason my lines didn't print out in that box, so it's kind of hard to tell going across, but we're high up there on leading the nation at 45% of our fatalities compared to the US, which is 28%, and the next best state is 19% of their fatalities are alcohol related, and that was for 2016. Page 7, just an overview of the DUI task forces in Montana and the MCA code that we're governed by, which is 61.2.105 through 108. Currently, there are 38 DUI task forces serving 42 counties throughout the state. And everybody has the same effort. And then the bottom of the page into the Broadwater County overview. That hasn't changed. The two law enforcement agencies haven't changed from that page. And then on to page 8, the 2016 violations. So that is, for the most part, what you're going to see in here is 2016 is the year where the most complete set of data is available. So you can see across that graph that first offense DUIs are pretty significant here in Broadwater County, along with second, third, and fourth. Aggravated DUI, open container, MIPs, and UAPs. So the bottom box there, alcohol-related and seatbelt use crash data, it's going to be a little hard to see because my printer didn't do a good job. But when you look at 2016, there's nothing, and that means that there were 0 fatalities here in Broadwater County in 2016.
Oh, wow,
Yep,
that's fantastic.
that is
Nicely done.
fantastic. Yep.
2017.
The bad news, the bad news is that 2017, if you were to see that graph, it would swing clear up, because there were a few significant ones that landed in this county. But it's always good to acknowledge zeros when you see them. Page 9, the impaired driver crashes. So even though we didn't have any fatalities, road fatalities in 2016, we did have crashes that were impaired from impaired drivers. So we went from a pretty low amount in 2015 to a higher amount in 2016 as far as crashes go. And then the winter versus summer month, fatal and serious injury crashes. Everybody, when you ask people, if you were to ask someone when they think most crashes occur, they're always going to say winter months. People think more people crash when it's icy and snowy and terrible road conditions, but they don't. They crash more on dry summer, clear, straight roadways. And that's usually historically. So that's the same thing here, except for in 2012 and then in 2007 and 8 it was the same amount, but historically there are more crashes in our summer months than our winter months. Page 10, the male versus female alcohol-related fatal and serious injury crashes. That hasn't changed. That's pretty much the same in most counties, where more of our males are driving under the influence and crashing than our females. And then the bottom graph shows that we have more drivers between the ages of 21 and 54, which this graph used to be really awesome where you could pull out smaller age groups, but now Department of Transportation has grouped everybody into much larger age groups, and so we just have those two to pick from.
That's too bad, because that would be good information to have.
Yeah, it is, because it's nice to target smaller demographics. If you were to ask me where I would talk to 21 to 54-year-olds, I'd probably have to come up with 12 different places to reach them, where if it was 21 to 30-year-olds, I could probably narrow my locations where I could talk to them at. Yeah. Page 11, this data comes from the Prevention Needs Assessment data, which Department of Public Health and Human Services does every other year with the students. They didn't do the survey last year because that's that mid-year, so this is the same data that we presented last year in our plan from the 2016 information. And these are surveys that are self-reported, that are the students don't put their names on them. So it's one of those times when you hope they're being honest so that the information collected is good and honest. But what you'll see from there is that the chart shows that drinking and driving and riding with a drunk driver among 8th grade students went down. Drinking and driving among 10th grade students went up in 2014 and then went down in 2016. But riding with a drunk driver has steadily increased, and then drinking and driving and riding with a drunk driver decreased in 2012 to 2014, but increased in the 14 to 16 time frame in your 12th graders. The last one is always interesting. It's always nice to know where underage kids are getting their alcohol. Primarily, they're saying they got it from someone they know aged 21 years and older, got it from home without their parents' permission, got it from a party or keg, and got it from home with their parents' permission, or got it from someone they know who's also under 21. So, parents are still providing alcohol to their kids. So then page 12 just lists some of the similar things that we're always challenged with here in Broadwater County. DUI offenders, minors under the age in possession of alcohol, illegal alcohol sales, and seatbelt use. So nothing has changed there. Nothing has changed with our goal to reduce and eliminate the economic costs with alcohol impaired crashes, injuries, and fatalities.
I will say, if you guys are aware, our last compliance check done 2 months ago, 4 out of the 17 failed in our county. So, and 2 of the 17 weren't even open. So, really, it's 4 out of 15 that sold to a minor. So it's we're right there. It's I don't know. I mean, it's not that they don't know, but it's complacency, I guess. So.
And that happened, the same thing happened in Lewis and Clark County. We did one just probably the week before this one, and we had 7 failures, and that's never a good feeling because we were doing a good job on our compliance checks and seeing really, really low numbers, which means people are doing their job correctly. So when you see 4 out of 15, that's a terrible percent of people who are putting alcohol in the hands of underage kids. Page 13, program administration and chair, all the same stuff. And then starts our objectives under policy and legislation. Our first objective is to increase probability that impaired drivers will be subject to swift, sure, and appropriate sanctions. So there's lots of strategies there supporting DUI impaired driving laws, seatbelt and child safety seat laws. And then number 2, under enforcement, prosecution, on page 14, adjudication and training. increasing risk perception of being arrested and convicted of DUIs. So we've got strategies there to support our law enforcement, prosecutor, and judges, whether that's training or overtime shifts or supplies and equipment. And then swift and effective prosecution of DUI offenders, and the strategy of supporting visual trial technology and that type of thing is always something that we're willing to do. And in fact, we're working with Corey right now trying to get some new equipment in the courthouse. Perhaps this afternoon during our meeting he might have something to update us, but we are trying to fund a large TV in the courtroom, so you're not wheeling that smaller thing in and out, and utilizing that and have it positioned where everybody can see it, and hopefully it'll be a benefit to the courtroom there. Page 15, DUI specific training for prosecutors, judges, law enforcement, our task force members and others. So we're always wanting to support that if we have money, which is pretty much some of the stuff that we went to in San Antonio fell right under that. And then dissuade DUI offenders from driving under the influence in the future, increasing offender compliance by utilizing the 24/7 program. So I didn't know if you had anything to add about how well that's going.
You know, well, statistically, the 24/7 program is effective. I think it's still about a 97% percent of compliance with it. There are a few that just aren't going to do it, but for the most part, it does work. I will say that unfortunately, with the amount of illegal narcotics and obviously the issues with prescription pills, and obviously with marijuana, heroin, and everything else, one of the things I have to look at is to do a DRE. They have to go through A-RIDE, and they have to score at least a 96 or better on A-RIDE in order to be eligible to go to DRE. The DRE is 2 weeks in Phoenix, doing hands-on evaluations, stops, all that stuff. It's a necessary evil, just because the fact is that so many people are on drugs, not necessarily alcohol. But right now, obviously we don't have the ability, but A-RIDE might be the next step, because they do catch on to some more of those indicators that are indicative of driving under the influence of a narcotic versus alcohol. So that's something that I'm trying to look at, just see what the plausibility of that is. But at some point we're going to have to get a DRE. There's only a handful in our area, and you get somebody, you gotta wait quite a while to get somebody down here. So, but we're starting to see a lot more drug related DUIs and drug and alcohol related DUIs as well. So the drug component, people are really getting pretty good about the alcohol component. Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, but the drugs is one that's sneaking up on us fairly quickly, and it's hard to combat that through normal means that we have in the past. So
Yeah, for sure. I know that I was going to share with you, Lynn, later today that Lewis and Clark County has just purchased a supply of these roadside saliva kits for drugs.
Oh.
So they're kind of testing it out. The first phase of it is going to be just to see how well they work roadside, and if the officers are comfortable using them, and if what they're seeing is not alcohol impairment, but they know something isn't right, and they use them, and how well that's turning out, and maybe going forward it would be something, if it becomes effective over there, that we could use. And I also think that Mackenzie is at A-RIDE today and tomorrow or
Oh, is she?
somewhere. Yeah, so that
Okay.
could be helpful for here. Your highway patrol gal here I think she's at that training right now today. So then the bottom objective on page 15, assist and support training of law enforcement for the field of drug recognition, which is right what we're talking about now. It is a huge commitment to have someone get trained be out of the area for 2 weeks, and there's a big expense to that too, so it would be nice to do that, but there's a lot of pieces that have to fall into place. The middle of page 16, education awareness, media advocacy and intervention. Reducing incident of alcohol impaired driving, which is always trying to find some appropriate transportation alternatives. Because you're a rural community and you don't have taxi services, that can be difficult, but what I do know is that Uber, if it's not already functioning here, is looking at Broadwater County and trying to see if they could get some drivers available for some of the smaller counties, which could benefit for a lot of reasons. Could give somebody a small job and make a little money, and then also give folks an alternative to getting home safely from the establishments or whatever's going on. Page 17, promoting policies and practices that prevent underage drinking and overservice. That's our responsible alcohol sales and service training class, Laura, that you were mentioning. We do that 4 times a year here. The last 2 classes, I want to say I ended up canceling because I haven't had anybody sign up for them. But I think that could change this year because when this law went into effect in October 2011, that everyone had to get trained, the actual administrative rules didn't start till 2012, and the certificates and the training is good for 3 years. So 2018 marks that 3-year mark for a lot of folks. So maybe we'll see more participation, or maybe not, but we do have Marvin Reddick at the Sheriff's Office, myself, and Chris Ramongo, who comes out of Livingston but covers Broadwater County too, that can offer training if someone needs it. The bottom part of that page, increasing public awareness and educate about the problems of dangers of impaired driving, is just an ongoing thing for us, whether we're putting up signs or an article or putting stuff on Facebook. Those are just ongoing things during those high times when we know people are drinking more, like the rodeo,
It's a sober event.
yeah, during Christmas and St. Patrick's Day and 4th of July, all those same times that happen nationwide and here locally for just local events. And then the bottom part of that page, increasing public awareness and education related to occupant protection devices, which is all about seatbelts and child safety seats. We did get one of the deputies certified in child passenger safety, and he's still kind of figuring out how that will work for him, but I'm supporting him as best as I can. And but there is a resource here for people if they need help with their car seat or have questions about that, and I can't get over here. We do have him on board, and for the life of me, I can't even, his name's not even...
Tony.
Tony. Cordova. Yeah,
Tony.
Tony. He's a great guy. And then page 19, evaluation, special projects and meetings, that's all the same thing. As far as evaluating our program and how effective we are, it's primarily looking at our crash data, looking at our arrests and convictions, the number of people who participate in our trainings, the results of our compliance check, and the number of youth who attend some of our events, which are primarily our Super Bowl party and that type of thing. That's our plan for the year.
You guys really do have a big bang for the buck for what you do, so thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're doing some things that not hardly any other task forces do. Oh,
We have the new logo.
Miss McKenzie from the Highway Patrol, the minute she joined our task force and we put her right into the vice chair position and asked her to think about designing us a new logo, she whipped one out right during the meeting.
Yep.
And
Wow.
so at the top, it's a pretty awesome logo. There's some other task forces who have seen that and would like to have Mackenzie help them do the same thing. So that's what you see right there is our new logo.
It's nicely done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I move that we approve and accept your member contracts, your meeting calendar, your budget, and the overall DUI task force plan for fiscal year 19.
I'll second it. Motion been made and seconded to approve the DUI contact list, schedule, budget, and overall plan. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just curiosity, what is the total annual budget for the task force?
Yeah, we're,
I came in late, so I
Sure.
apologize.
So, for fiscal year 18, our total budget was 12,952, and we're projecting our budget for fiscal year 19 to be 7,276.
Or a reduction.
well,
Yeah.
it's all funded through reinstatement fees from DUIs, so it's not a tax,
Yeah.
a tax mill.
Okay, well, I'm just curious what your budget is to work with.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had more, but it just kinda, everything gets more expensive, but.
And I was gonna move when he stuck his hand in the air, but I tell you, I'm impressed by that budget. Good job. Yeah, that's,
Yeah. We've found some
I was
crafty ways.
expecting a lot bigger numbers than that.
Were you? I think we were
But I missed the
functioning.
first part of the meeting too, but yeah, you know, I understand how expensive things are, so, yeah, good job.
And really, the only big expense of the year is a Super Bowl party. But we had 58 kids, I think.
Yeah.
We opened it up to the middle school kids and the high school kids this year, and we had 58 kids there, which was great. You know, the criteria to get to it is 2 cans of food, and that goes to the food bank, so it helps out that aspect. But, you know, it is a big bill for that, but the kids had fun, and we got a bunch of repeat customers from years before, so, other than that, you know, really, it's just operational stuff from that point, so.
Finding fun things. Probably our most attractive item, which I did bring for you,
Goodness,
are our hunting and fishing license covers. These are hot commodities.
they are.
With a nice message to remind people not to drink and drive and wear their seatbelts. I can't even keep those
Yeah.
in stock right now. So those are finding some of these fun things that also get our message out is important to us because people are paying attention to what we're, you know, what our efforts are.
I actually took a bag like that down to Rocky Mountain Supply on my way home one day from after a meeting. And I stopped in the next morning to get my coffee, like, do you have any more of those? So I just brought you some. And they said, we're out. I'm like, it was only like 14 hours ago they dropped the damn things off. So, yeah, but everybody likes them, so.
So I did bring 2 signature pages, one for you guys and one for us, because our deadline for MDT is June 1, and then we'll get that submitted.
That really does go.
And then this is for Debbie, but I can email her. I have 2 bags of those for you.
She's in a webinar right now.
Tracy, can I send you a list of our meetings and
Mhm.
see if we can coordinate something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
I will do that.
Yep. I want to say off the top of my head that I know there's one coming up in here, but I'm pretty sure because I usually do them 10 to 2, it doesn't fit a lot of the business people, you know, their time frame. I probably do need to revisit my schedule and maybe swap doing a morning with an evening, you know, every other time, and that would work fine for me. So definitely, yeah, if you share that with me, I can make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for all you do. You do a good job.
Anything else?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay,
You just keep us on task.
we're good?
I think so.
Okay. All right, take care, have a good Memorial Weekend.
Thank you.
We start our 100 Deadliest Days of Summer, so it's a little scary.
alternative to work.
They do.
They do, or they are our work. If I may, the board, just, I apologize if there was a public comment period, did I miss it, or?
No, we didn't, there was no public here, so we didn't really have it.
I just had a few things to say to you guys in regards to yesterday's meeting, if that's all right with you. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to, excuse me, I got kind of a sore throat, but thank all of you for your work. And then I'm working with Corey, I just talked with him to give to give him an update. I've spoken with my contact Billy Dove and Kate McGregor in Washington, as well as Scott Scott Haight from the BLM Butte office today. An important aspect of this route determination is going to be the fact that the route that is shown on the 1972 USGS map is the route there is a route as shown on that map that circumvents the Cox's property. It travels directly, Cox owns the north half of section 12, and this road is just skirting right along that north half of section 12 off of Cox's property onto the BLM lands there from the McMaster's gate at the parking area to the gravel pit, and then kind of easterly across and connecting with the point of origin from the lake up the hill in section 6 there. So it goes six and a little, just a smidgen, it might not even be in one, but section 6 to 12, 11, 14, and then 23, I believe, out to the highway. So you might want to examine that route on that 72 map. Another thing is that please keep in mind, because this is important, and I just met Corey in the clerk and recorder's office because I was up there to verify some things. I remember in my research, and I've expressed to this board before, that those lands that the government acquired as under the McMaster's Ranch acquisition are subject to existing easements, i.e. county roads. So there will be a difference in there's a little bit of difference in the BLM's role in this matter, because we're not talking about public domain lands that were crossed by this county road. We're talking about fee simple title property that was acquired by the government. So there's some difference there. We're not going to be regulated by federal regulation. I believe it's a matter of state law at that point, because again it's fee simple property, not under the federal domain laws. I remember early on in my research, the land that is the BOR land in section 6, which is important land as well. That land it was acquired land as well. It was purchased land. It wasn't eminent domain land. It was land that was homesteaded by a man, by Susan Hall and a man by the name of Ostler in section 6. That land was subsequently sold to the Missouri River Power Company in the 1890s. And then sometime in the 40s, I just looked, I can't remember the exact date, but sometime in the 40s it was purchased by the United States government, but not under eminent domain. They just outright purchased it. In their chain of title as well, there's exceptions for county roads and things. So that property is also subject, and it's not going to be under the same guidelines as the public domain land. So what we're looking at on that route that's on the 72 map, there's a quarter, maybe a half mile of road in the northeast corner of section 12, the northeast corner of section 12 is public domain land. There's a little bit of that road, but I'm a quarter mile maybe that's on that public domain land. In the northeast corner of section 12, that was land that was owned by Len Leffler from the Leffler family in the area. That was subsequently acquired by the McMasters, and then now owned by the BLM. So we have some land in there that is public domain land, but it's 100, I think it's 80 acres. Maybe it's 160. But yeah, so I just wanted to bring you up to speed on that. And I'm getting copies to Corey of those deeds from the land in section 6, so he's aware of it, because, well, as you know, he's going back and forth with Corey, but he got really excited and notice, but to me, that would be the case. Yes, we have to provide a private landowner, notice, but it's in the same sense that we would provide Mr. Cox notice if we were passing through his property, because it's not public domain land, except for this little in the northeast quarter is the public domain land. All of the other land, again, is fee simple titled property, subject to state jurisdiction. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say, and thanks again. So just trying to bring you up to
Thank you.
speed. Yep.
Thanks.
I'll get you those copies, Corey. Sounds good. See you, Tim.
Okay, we can move on to the White Horse Road.
No, you're good. Come on.
Kept them in the order that you had.
Okay. So we have been doing research on this. We haven't been able to link up with Laura Nagel to meet with her. I think I found the document that I had seen in her stack. So I think we may be complete, but there may be more. I think we've certainly found all the documents that are recorded on this property. So I think that's kind of where we are. So the question is regarding White Horse Road, which is a dirt road coming off of Highway 287 in Section 2 of Township 7 North, Range 1 East, I believe East, yeah, Range 1 East. And then that road goes west, through several properties or along several properties, crosses the railroad tracks, and continues west. And the question is whether that is a public road or a private road. And I understand there's a lot of prehistory here, and the gentleman in the audience can provide more of that history than I can. But I understand that there's been some questions in the past as to whether the road's public and or whether it would make sense to try and make this a county road. I know there was discussions as well in the past about cooperative maintenance agreement with the county, whether it was winter plowing or whether it was summer gravel. But right now the question before the commission is just, is this a county road? Or sorry, is this a public road? And the reason that I'm aware of the most recent cause of this discussion was just last year there was a dispute between a couple of folks on the road as to whether it was a public road, and that's how I got involved. And I'd never heard of the issue before, but it had certainly gone on for some time. So the document that I recommend we look at, and you guys feel free to come up and look if you want to look, is this certificate of survey, which we checked out from the vault, and we'll make a point of not wrecking it. And so that certificate of survey shows And really, all the residents we're talking about are subdivided off of this property here. And then there's roads, internal access roads that access property here. Is that right? Are there people living all the way up into there? Okay. So what's interesting about this survey is it was done in 1979, as you can see down here, and it was recorded in 1982. So this 60-foot wide easement was there at least as of 1979. And the other interesting thing, I think we've talked about this, is that ordinarily easements are going to be straddling a property line. We have 30 on one side and then 30 on the other. This one's not that way. The property owners on the south side of this line don't have an easement encumbering their property. It's all 60 feet is on the north side of that section line. And that is roughly the roadway with ditches, and then it goes out from there for the fences. But if you go down that road and you check those boundary fences, they roughly coincide with the section line on the south and the dotted easement line on the north. Do you want to add that, Tim? Is that your understanding?
I would agree that you're accurate here, that the original road going to the White Horse Ranch was recorded as a 30-foot easement. In '79, when Mr. Bess subdivided from the sale of the property from the Huntsacres to Foster, so we have a couple of different landowners in the history of owning this land. Then it was subdivided. Mr. Bess made the Elkhorn subdivision, and at that time, when that 79, 1980, 80, right in that era, is when another survey was done on the purpose of that subdivision to establish a 60-foot right-of-way, which was county standards, from what I understand. Now, I'm not sure how that ever got to that point, because I cannot find where that process actually took place to make that, starting out here on the first section of White Horse Road only being 30, but yet the remainder ended up being recorded as 60. Do you agree with that? Am I missing something?
So, yeah, let me clarify that, because that's right. So going to the section line, to this corner, there originally was a 30-foot easement on the north and a 30-foot easement on the south for a total of 60.
Originally when?
It looks like this is 1912, and
Yeah.
that was for the purpose of a utility easement, which was pre-discussion of subdivisions.
And again, that's back when Hunsaker owned it, making that easement to have access to the White Horse Ranch.
1912 would have been long before Hunsaker's owned it.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we should probably stick with the facts that we can verify.
so if it was before that, then I would say, you know, the original access to the White Horse Ranch.
So everything west of this point, and it continues on for quite a while, well, really all of section 3, it was 60 feet on the north side, there was not a 30-foot on the south side. So that there are two different kind of overlaying easements.
So 60 feet on the north side.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's start with the original 30 and 30 from 1912. That was for a Montana Power Company. It wasn't called Montana Power Company in 1912, but they're the ones who ultimately acquired it. It was I believe it was a Great Falls Electric Company easement. And so that would have been for utility as well as access for maintenance of that easement, okay? Here's the document that I let me know if you have this document, Nicole. In 1979, the commissioners did a resolution approving the Elkhorn subdivision conditional upon the Montana Power Company's easement being retained. I'm not sure if I have that
I was gonna say,
resolution.
I don't have that discussion in any of my records that I can recall, as far as being recorded. You know, I think it makes sense,
Yeah.
because that's all I can find on that Elkhorn subdivision, is the recording of the subdivision itself.
So this explains the reason for this survey in 1979 was for the discussion of putting in a subdivision. So that overlays that 60-foot easement on
top of a 60-foot, although they are offset now by 30 feet. Does that make sense? So then what's,
It reaffirms a 60-foot easement is kind of what you're saying.
right, but
Because it was
it's
over
30
nine.
feet farther north
Mhm.
in section 2.
Okay,
But then that easement goes through section 2 to that, from Highway 287 west to the end of the corner of section 2, and then all the way through west through section 3. That includes crossing the railroad. Because the railroad's about halfway through, a third of the way through section 3. So, then we come to,
Before you go any further, Cory,
Sure.
is the road that you are showing that goes clear through section 3, does that record that you're going with, does that show the rest of the road that's been there historically? And the reason I ask that is because that's been a question as well in the past, is where does the road end as far as this question of what its purpose was, because this comes back into historic documents of ingress and egress to property.
I don't really have much on the old historic roadway, or
Okay.
route of the roadway. Oh, there it is. Okay, and Nicole has this here, and this is June 5th, 1979. The county commissioners approved Elkhorn subdivision with multiple conditions, including the Montana Power Company easement for right-of-way shall be recorded with the plat and be included in any deeds affected thereby.
Okay, that gives us right away for the power company. And we're making sure that we had that established in the record as well, as you have the right away for the power company. Because one landowner up there, and I'm not that landowner, was questioning if that was legitimate, and I have always claimed that that's legitimate right away for the power company, even though it's actually off of that road easement. It's on the south side of the road easement,
Yeah, and then,
in its actual physical location.
And then I misspoke a little bit on that road. That road goes all the way to the Burlington Northern right of way. It doesn't continue west of the Burlington Northern right of way.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at a couple different documents for that, but I do have a 1980, April 2nd, 1980 letter that's spelling out that roadway. So, where does that put us? It puts us at, there's a whole bunch of documents that show the transactions on this property, a little bit around, really beginning in the early 90s and then through the 90s, as there were sales of land that were farther up that road. And I think the one that makes sense to start with is in November of 1994, Grant and Laura Nagel granted an easement to Ronald Burgess and Dewey Cooper, and it should be
Capragino.
the southwest corner of section 2, going north. And then it references basically the bottom part of this survey. So it's clear we're talking about this section, the 60-foot wide easement in section 2. That make sense?
repeat that?
The grant, the deed or the easement that Nagel provided to, or sold to Cooper and Burgess was along the most southerly 60 feet of the southwest quarter of section 2. And then the drawing that's attached to Exhibit A is basically, in fact it is, a partial photo of this recorded document. And so we're referring to that.
Okay.
So that's,
Question?
yep,
Does that, and I'm just trying to help you folks understand some of this history without getting too deep into it, but that easement or right of way, whatever terminology is used in the document, between Burgess, Cooper, and Nagel, is that exclusively and ending on the property reaching to section 3, or does it reference the whole entire road to the railroad?
Going west is section 10 and 11. You have those documents in your hand?
I don't have them with me, no.
I just gave them to you.
Oh,
feel free to jump in here, Nicole.
This is my date.
oh, no.
Calm down.
How far does it go, Nicole?
It goes west, so moving westerly, section 2 is Lower and Grant Nagel.
Mhm.
And then moving west is section 10 and 11. So there's that corner pin of 10 and 11. If you go east to section 3. So Mr. Ravenel referenced section 3, that's actually on the other side of the highway.
So does the one to Cooper and Burgess though does go that far?
I believe it
Remember?
does, because Cooper and Burgess, they were just east of the railroad.
Okay.
So going west along, so this document, are you referencing book 1, page 307? I didn't mean to interrupt.
Page
Is that-
407?
I'm sorry, I said 307. Is that the one you're referencing?
Yeah.
And so it does, Burgess and Cooper did own the property just east of the railroad.
Okay. Got a hand up in the back. Mike?
Yes, Terry.
Cooper and them bought, if you remember when the Black Diamond Mine was up there, it started from Van Acres, went across the railroad tracks, went up into the mountains to the Forest Service. And Cooper bought the Black Diamond Mine. That's how they got that property. Another question is, back when Best subdivided that property and the commissioners okayed it, that means they were also okaying the right-of-way to get to that subdivision. So that eliminates a lot of stuff.
And I think that's one of the things that the other neighbor is questioning is whether that right-of-way exists on White Horse Road. And I've never been able to find anything that shows that it is actually recorded as such in the subdivision plat. But the other landowner claims that right-of-way to, or access to that subdivision was supposed to be under Valley. And now, I'm gonna say that does not exist. I've never been able to see that or concur with that, but I have, at the same time,
Are you talking about Elkhorn?
in the information that I've been able to look at, I have not seen where, pardon?
Are you talking about the Elkhorn subdivision?
Yes.
It's recorded upstairs, and it shows this right here.
Because once a COS is, plat is recorded, any easements on it become valid easements.
So in other words, my understanding is the original easements that were recorded, the 65 easements, are just automatically transferred to the subdivision.
When you say 65, you mean feet or the year?
60 foot wide easement.
Okay.
Because it was recorded before 79, or before these 90s. There's so many different dates there. The easement 60 foot wide was recorded prior to the subdivision of the Elkhorn when Mr. Best did. Is that correct? Do you agree with that?
On the deeds.
On the original property, this easement was there.
Not
So
the
that easement was actually transferred to the subdivision plat. So as part of?
No, because that, in the Elkhorn subdivision, that 60 foot was already deeded to the county, or I don't know if deeded, but the right of way was given to the county because it was never